Batman's villains have broken his back, conquered Gotham, infected the Justice League, and rewritten reality more than once. So, today, I'm explaining every Batman villain ever and how powerful each of them truly are to figure out who his strongest enemy is. And it's not who you think. Joker might be his most iconic enemy, Bane has already beaten him, and Poison Ivy can threaten the entire planet. But the final villain became so powerful that Batman had zero chance of stopping him on his own. Let's kick things off with the one that started everything, Joe Chill. Joe Chill sits near the bottom of any physical power ranking. He has no enhanced strength, no private army, and no scientific weapon capable of freezing a city block. In the most familiar version of Batman's origin, he is a desperate street criminal who confronts Thomas, Martha, and Bruce Wayne after they leave a theater. He demands their valuables, fires the shots that kill both parents, and leaves their son alive in Crime Alley. DC has changed his role across different continuities. Some periods left the murderer unnamed, while other stories allowed Bruce to discover Chill's identity years later. The essential result stays intact. An ordinary criminal causes the event around which Batman builds his entire life. That makes Chill enormously consequential without making him powerful. Put him in a prepared fight with Batman, and how long does he last? 10 seconds? Chill's importance comes from timing and irreversible damage. One frightened man finds one family on one bad night, and Gotham spends the following decades living with the result. He establishes the first rule of this ranking. Consequence and power overlap, but they are not interchangeable. Chill may have created Batman, yet he has almost no ability to keep winning once Batman exists. Tony Zuko. Tony Zuko produces a similar transformation on a larger public stage. Zuko is a mobster who demands protection money from Haley's circus. When the circus owner refuses, Zuko sabotages the trapeze equipment used by John and Mary Grayson. Their ropes fail during a performance, killing them in front of their young son Dick. Bruce recognizes the look on Dick's face because he has lived through the same moment. He takes the boy in, trains him, and eventually gives him the identity of Robin. Zuko expects a protection racket to reinforce his control over a local business. Instead, he accidentally creates the partner who will become Nightwing, lead the Titans, and eventually wear the Batman cowl himself. Again, the criminal loses the direct power test. Zuko relies on intimidation, paid muscle, and sabotage. His place in Batman's history comes from the legacy he accidentally creates. Gotham's mob keeps producing the people who will dismantle it. Carmine Falcone. Before themed criminals fill Arkham, Gotham is controlled by families such as the Falcones and Maronis. Carmine Falcone represents a system that has spent years embedding itself inside business, policing, and city government. He does not need to wear a costume because respectable Gotham already protects him. In Batman, Year One, Bruce's earliest campaign collides with that network while Jim Gordon discovers how deeply corruption has infected the police department. Falcone can purchase silence, redirect investigations, and make violence look like ordinary city business. His physical abilities are unremarkable, although his reach exceeds Joe Chill or Tony Zuko because he controls people who are supposed to enforce the law. The Long Halloween captures the point where that form of power starts failing. A killer named Holiday targets members of the mob while Batman, Gordon, and District Attorney Harvey Dent attempt to break Falcone's empire. And this is the question hanging over all of them. Can Gotham's old criminals survive the freaks who are about to replace them? Sal Maroni. Sal Maroni becomes vital when he throws acid into Harvey Dent's face during a courtroom trial. The attack scars one side of Harvey and accelerates his transformation into Two-Face. Maroni does not gain much power from doing it. He creates an enemy who will outlive his entire criminal order. Falcone wins the comparison between the two mobsters because his organization reaches deeper into Gotham. Maroni causes the more explosive transformation. Neither can survive the city they helped build, because Batman's arrival turns secrecy into a weakness and the new villains refuse to obey the mob's old rules. Black Mask. Roman Sionis, better known as Black Mask, adapts more successfully. His obsession with masks grows from a life built around false appearances. He comes from a wealthy Gotham family, destroys the company he inherits, and eventually creates a criminal identity around a black mask connected to his family's coffin in the best-known telling. Black Mask commands the False Face Society and repeatedly fights for control of Gotham's underworld. His rule is maintained through fear that is far more personal than Falcone's business-like corruption. During War Games, he tortures Stephanie Brown while attempting to seize the criminal power vacuum created by one of Batman's failed contingency plans. In other stories, he wages war against Catwoman and later collides with Jason Todd's violent campaign as the Red Hood. Sionis is physically human, even when particular stories give the mask unusual properties. Separated from his soldiers and weapons, Batman can beat him cleanly. But how does Bruce isolate somebody who has made himself the center of Gotham's latest criminal network? Black Mask keeps returning because the city continually creates another underworld for him to occupy. Great White Shark. Warren White builds power from inside Arkham rather than on the streets. Before becoming the Great White Shark, he is a financial criminal who destroys lives through fraud. He pleads insanity because he assumes Arkham will be easier than prison. The decision places an ordinary white-collar criminal among Gotham's most dangerous people. Abuse, injury, and severe cold leave White physically mutilated, with pale skin and a sharpened appearance. He learns how Arkham's internal economy works and emerges as an organizer capable of moving money, information, and contraband through the institution. His attempt to escape prison turns him into a genuine Arkham villain, and that is one hell of a self-inflicted origin. In a fight, he ranks low, while his financial reach and ability to profit from other villains make him much harder to remove than his body suggests. Victor Zsasz. Victor Zsasz strips Gotham crime down to its ugliest human scale. He kills personally, usually with a knife, and cuts a mark into his own skin for every victim. There is no city improvement speech or elaborate attempt to educate Batman. Zsasz treats life as empty, and murder as the only honest response. That absence of a larger objective makes negotiation almost useless. Batman can physically overwhelm him, and Zsasz has no reliable way to conquer Gotham, but civilians remain in extreme danger whenever he escapes. What clue does a killer leave when there is no larger plan to decode? Zsasz only needs privacy and a target. Professor Pig. Professor Pig gives that intimate violence a grotesque system. Laszlo Valentin is associated with the Circus of Strange and pursues his own damaged idea of perfection. He kidnaps people, alters them, and creates Dolatrons whose identities have been chemically and surgically suppressed. The victims can survive while losing the lives and personalities they had before he found them. Pig's threat is built from irreversible harm. Batman can break his equipment and defeat his followers. Yet what happens when rescuing the victim cannot restore the identity Pig already removed? He ranks above Zsasz as an organizer and experimenter, although he remains a human villain working at victim or neighborhood scale. Calendar Man. Calendar Man once committed colorful crimes tied directly to dates, seasons, and holidays. Later stories, especially The Long Halloween, turned Julian Day into something quieter. From inside his cell, he studies patterns and offers Batman information while enjoying the fact that every approaching holiday may signal another death. He has intelligence and patience, but limited independent power. His strongest weapon is anticipation. Once Batman believes a date matters, every approaching holiday starts applying pressure. That earns him a place as a memorable psychological criminal, though he is nowhere near the top of the list. Ratcatcher. Ratcatcher is the first villain here with something approaching a metahuman advantage. Otis Flanagan knows Gotham's tunnels and can direct rats as scouts, infiltrators, or a living swarm. One rat looks harmless, but what happens when thousands enter the water supply, locked buildings and tunnels beneath Gotham at once? The ability gives him more reach than an ordinary killer, although Batman has several practical counters once he understands the source. Protective equipment, sonic tools, and tracing the swarm back to Flanagan collapse most of the advantage. Ratcatcher raises the ladder without taking control of it. Anarchy, Lonnie Machin, the original Anarchy, closes this first group by challenging the system Batman protects. He is young, extraordinarily intelligent, and driven by anti-authoritarian ideas rather than a conventional appetite for wealth. Depending on the period, he operates as an antagonist, vigilante, or uneasy ally. He can build sophisticated technology and force Batman to defend the institutions of Gotham instead of merely stopping a robbery. His ideology creates a better argument than his combat record creates a ranking. Anarchy has no stable claim to being the strongest villain, and even his status as a villain changes with the story. What he proves is that Gotham's next generation of enemies will build identities around an idea, which remains much harder to arrest than the old mob after its network has been exposed. The Penguin. Oswald Cobblepot has lasted because he understands that open warfare with Batman is usually bad business. The Penguin can use trick umbrellas, armed henchmen, and surprisingly vicious personal violence, but his greatest asset is the Iceberg Lounge. How does Batman arrest a man when half of Gotham treats his club like legitimate business? Batman often knows Cobblepot is involved in a crime long before he can prove it. Oswald uses intermediaries, trades information, and makes himself useful enough that removing him may create a more chaotic replacement. He rarely dominates Gotham for long, yet he survives almost every change in its underworld. In raw combat, he stays close to ordinary human level. His endurance as an institution puts him above the street killers and failed mob bosses. Penguin does not need to beat Batman on a rooftop if the Iceberg Lounge opens again after Batman leaves. Catwoman. Selina Kyle takes the opposite route. Catwoman is one of the best thieves in DC, with elite agility, stealth, combat skill, and an instinct for entering spaces that supposedly cannot be reached. During genuine villain periods, she can steal from Bruce Wayne, escape Batman, and exploit the attraction neither of them can keep completely separate from the chase. Her modern alignment makes a simple villain ranking dishonest. Selina has been an anti-hero, an ally, Bruce's partner, and a protector of people Gotham normally ignores. During her actual villain periods, though, she is an elite infiltrator, with access to something almost nobody else can steal: Bruce's trust. She does not have the destructive reach required to win this contest, and her later choices remove her from the field as a full-time villain. Catwoman matters because she can cross Batman's boundaries without wanting to destroy him. That relationship becomes a weakness, and just as often, a reason Bruce survives. The ventriloquist and Scarface. Arnold Wesker appears too timid to control a criminal organization. His second identity, Scarface, appears to disagree. Wesker uses a wooden ventriloquist dummy styled like an old gangster, giving Scarface the aggressive voice and authority he cannot express as himself. The stories preserve an important ambiguity. Scarface may represent a severe psychological division inside Wesker, while occasional moments suggest something stranger. Declaring the dummy definitively supernatural removes the uncertainty that makes the character work. Together, Wesker and Scarface can command gangs, arrange killings, and compete in Gotham's underworld. But who is Batman actually fighting here? The frightened man, the gangster persona, or something inside the dummy? Destroying or removing Scarface can interrupt the organization even when it does not permanently cure Wesker. Two-Face. Harvey Dent's division is far more personal to Bruce. Before the acid, Harvey is Gotham's district attorney and one of Batman and Gordon's most important allies. He is trying to use the law to finish what Batman begins in the streets. Maroni's attack scars half his face, and the trauma gives an existing psychological fracture a visible form. As Two-Face, Harvey lets a damaged coin decide whether mercy or violence controls his next action. The coin is scarred on one side and clean on the other, turning every decision into a performance of chance. He still understands law, police procedure, and Gotham politics. He can command gangs and construct crimes around duality, while the coin makes his behavior difficult to predict. It also makes him self-defeating. Harvey can build a careful plan and surrender its final outcome to a flip. Batman repeatedly tries to restore him because he remembers the man who stood beside him. Stories in which Harvey recovers never feel secure, since the identity remains available whenever pain overwhelms the structure holding him together. During No Man's Land, Two-Face exploits a Gotham divided into territories and later places Gordon on trial. That sequence shows the full character at work: gang leader, prosecutor, and damaged friend occupying the same room. He is the strongest personal tragedy on the ladder so far, with enough intelligence and resources to seize part of a city. Raw power still belongs elsewhere. The Riddler. Edward Nygma, sometimes Edward Nashton before he chooses the new name, needs recognition more than money. A perfect crime that nobody understands gives him no satisfaction. He leaves riddles because Batman must know who designed the puzzle and must be given a route toward the answer. That compulsion creates both his brilliance and his permanent weakness. Riddler can build traps, manipulate other criminals, and discover secrets that are supposed to be impossible to reach. In Hush, he works out Batman's identity after using a Lazarus pit and becomes part of the conspiracy aimed at Bruce. Batman neutralizes the value of the secret by pointing out that a riddle everyone knows has no value to Nygma. Telling the world would destroy the private proof of superiority he wants to possess. Zero Year shows a much larger ceiling. Riddler seizes control of Gotham after a devastating storm, cuts the city off, and forces its population to live inside a giant puzzle. He controls infrastructure, monitors resistance, and demands that somebody defeat him intellectually before Gotham can be freed. This is a genius converting an entire city into his game board. Nygma becomes the smartest contender so far and the first villain on the list with a clear, demonstrated period of citywide rule. Ego keeps the route to defeat open. He needs an answer to exist, because an unbeatable puzzle would never prove that he is smarter than the person trying to solve it. Mad Hatter. Jervis Tetch removes the need for cooperation. Mad Hatter's obsession with Alice in Wonderland shapes his victims, costumes, and fantasies, while his technology gives those fantasies physical control. Devices hidden inside hats or attached directly to a target's nervous system can override choice and turn civilians, officials, or heroes into extensions of his plan. A physically stronger enemy can lose before the fight begins if Tetch controls the correct mind. How much does strength matter when your own brain has already switched sides? Jervis is physically fragile. His obsessions make his behavior readable, and Batman can shield or disrupt the signal once he understands the device. Mad Hatter cannot match Riddler's stable city infrastructure, although his method is more invasive. Riddler needs Batman to enter a puzzle. Tetch can make somebody forget that a puzzle exists. Firefly. Garfield Linz turns arson into an aerial weapons platform. As Firefly, he uses a flight suit, flamethrowers, explosives, and knowledge of how quickly a fire can outrun the person who started it. Gotham's height and density multiply the damage. A blast aimed at Batman can ignite a building, block evacuation routes, and force every emergency service in the area to respond. The equipment gives Linz mobility and destructive output well above the ordinary criminals, but his durability remains limited. Disable the suit, remove the fuel, or force him away from a flammable environment, and he becomes much easier to contain. Leave him in the air for 30 seconds too long, and an ordinary robbery becomes a city emergency. Killer Moth. Killer Moth began with an amusingly direct business plan. If Batman protects innocent people, Cameron Van Cleer or Drury Walker, depending on the version, will become a Mothman who protects criminals. He creates a moth signal, develops themed equipment, and attempts to operate as Batman's professional opposite. The standard version sits low on the latter. He is dangerous equipment wrapped around a man who regularly overestimates himself. Then some continuity transforms him into Caraxes, a monstrous moth creature with enhanced strength, flight, and biological weapons. Did anybody expect Killer Moth to become a legitimate physical threat? It still is not enough to challenge the leaders. Harley Quinn. Harleen Quinzel enters Gotham as an Arkham psychiatrist and becomes fascinated by the Joker. He manipulates that fascination until she helps him escape and rebuilds herself as Harley Quinn. Her criminal period is full of acrobatics, oversized weapons, medical knowledge, and a willingness to turn apparent chaos into an opening. Harley is far harder to contain than an ordinary accomplice. Poison Ivy has enhanced her resistance to toxins in major versions, and Harley's unpredictability makes trained opponents hesitate over what she will do next. Her years beside Joker also teach her how his plans work from inside, knowledge that becomes especially valuable after she leaves him. That separation changes the verdict. Harley has committed serious crimes and genuinely belongs in Batman's rogues gallery, but modern Harley is frequently independent, anti-heroic, or openly heroic. Treating her as a permanent extension of Joker erases the entire direction of her story. At her villainous peak, she is a formidable wildcard, capable of beating opponents who dismiss her and surviving situations that should overwhelm a normal human. She does not have Riddler's infrastructure, Ivy's raw power, or the cosmic reach waiting near the end. Her biggest victory is walking away from the person who tried to define her and staying gone. Punchline. Alexis Kay chooses the ideology Harley learns to reject. Punchline understands that Joker is cruel and builds a public identity around selling that cruelty to other people. She uses recordings, courtroom performance, and social media to frame atrocity as rebellion, turning herself into a symbol for followers who want permission to enjoy the damage. Her combat skill and toxin knowledge make her dangerous in person, although propaganda is the real force multiplier. Punchline can continue influencing people while imprisoned because the audience carries the message for her. She ranks below Gotham's physical monsters, but above many human criminals in her ability to recruit a movement. Kite Man. Gotham's lower ranks contain villains whose names sound like a joke until one of their devices works. Kite Man, Charles Brown, uses specialized kites and gliders for transport, escape, and attack. He has suffered enough tragedy to become more than the Punchline other criminals expect, and he has occasionally turned ridicule into the reason nobody watches him closely. Polka Dot Man. Polka Dot Man stores weapons and unusual devices in the dots on his costume. Yes, the name sounds ridiculous. The equipment can still burn, cut, or trap somebody who laughs before checking what each dot actually does. Crazy Quilt. Crazy Quilt is a former criminal artist whose damaged sight leaves him obsessed with color. His helmet can project intense light or hypnotic patterns, turning a visual gimmick into a legitimate way of disorienting Batman. The Eraser. The Eraser is paid to remove evidence from other criminals' scenes, treating forensic cleanup as a costumed service. In a city policed by the world's greatest detective, deleting the clue can matter more than throwing the punch. Zebra Man. Zebra Man's body can generate unusual electromagnetic attraction and repulsion, giving an absurd visual design a genuine metahuman ability. And honestly, how many criminals on this list can say Batman once needed a special device just to get near them? Condiment King. Condiment King fires sauces from weaponized containers and remains dangerous mainly because even a ridiculous chemical attack can blind or disable somebody at the wrong moment. Batman still wins, obviously, but taking ketchup to the eyes while standing on a Gotham rooftop is a terrible way to learn that lesson. Ten-Eyed Man. Ten-Eyed Man has optic nerves connected to his fingertips, allowing him to see through his hands at the cost of a vulnerability Batman can exploit. It is one of those powers that sounds useless until he can look around cover without exposing his head. The Calculator. Calculator begins as a costumed criminal matching gimmicks against heroes and later becomes a far more effective information broker who coordinates villains from behind a screen. Once he stops trying to win the costume contest, he becomes genuinely useful to almost every criminal network in DC. None of them takes the lead. They matter because Batman cannot rank a threat by costume alone. Gotham regularly punishes anyone who decides a villain looks too stupid to prepare for. Riddler remains the strongest mind and largest proven ruler in this part of the list, while Mad Hatter has introduced direct control over choice. The next enemies move deeper. They target fear, memory, identity, and Batman's confidence that he understands the city beneath his feet. Hugo Strange. Hugo Strange was studying Batman before most of Gotham's famous rogues existed. He has appeared as a psychologist, scientist, monster maker, and criminal strategist, with every role feeding the same obsession with Batman. His goal extends beyond defeating Bruce because he wants to explain him so completely that the identity becomes something he can possess. That clinical approach has repeatedly led Strange to Bruce Wayne. He studies Batman's injuries, patterns, resources, and emotional responses until the secret becomes the most logical diagnosis. Once he knows, he can attack through institutions that Bruce normally uses for cover. A psychologist can declare someone unstable, a scientist can manufacture physical threats, and a public expert can control the story told about a masked vigilante. Strange's monster men show his willingness to alter human bodies into weapons, while later plans reveal how quickly his professional fascination turns into imitation. He has worn Batman's image and imagined himself as the superior version. Ego creates the opening that follows. Strange wants Bruce to recognize the quality of the analysis, so his victory rarely stays private or efficient. He surpasses the earlier criminals in psychological access and scientific versatility. Riddler can discover the answer to Batman's identity, while Strange wants to own the identity itself. He still needs equipment, preparation, and people he can manipulate. The next villain carries his laboratory in a cloud of gas. Scarecrow. Jonathan Crane studies fear with the enthusiasm of someone who stopped caring about the people experiencing it. As Scarecrow, he develops toxins that cause hallucinations shaped by a target's deepest anxieties. The chemical does not need to make Crane physically stronger. It can make Batman see an alley where no alley exists, mistake an ally for a murderer, or relive the deaths he has spent years trying to prevent. Crane's earliest advantage is surprise. Once the toxin reaches the bloodstream or lungs, Batman's own intelligence begins producing convincing threats. Bruce knows his mind is being manipulated, yet knowing does not automatically separate a hallucination from sensory reality. The better he understands danger, the more material fear has available. Scarecrow gradually expands beyond targeted experiments. He has contaminated large sections of Gotham and combined fear with propaganda, surveillance, and authoritarian control. During Fear State, Gotham is already being pushed toward rule by the magistrate. Crane exploits that political anxiety and intends to drive the city through a carefully managed cycle of terror. So what happens when the test subject is no longer Batman? But all of Gotham? Batman has developed filters, antidotes, and mental techniques because Crane returns so often. Those counters matter to the ranking. Scarecrow can bypass strength and weaponize Batman's trauma, but the delivery system can be blocked, and Crane remains physically vulnerable once the chemical advantage is removed. He takes the lead for direct psychological weaponry. Riddler forces Batman to solve a city. Scarecrow can make him unsure whether the city in front of him is real. Hush. Thomas Elliot knew Bruce before either of them wore a mask. As a child, Elliot resented his parents and attempted to arrange their deaths through a car crash so he could inherit their fortune. Bruce's father, Thomas Wayne, saved Elliot's mother, turning an act of medical skill into the focus of Thomas Elliot's hatred. Elliot grows into a brilliant surgeon and builds the Hush identity around revenge. His knowledge of Bruce gives him access that cannot be purchased from a Gotham informant. In the original Hush conspiracy, he coordinates with other rogues and uses Batman's relationships as moving pieces, although Riddler is crucial to the larger plan and the discovery of Bruce's identity. Hush's surgical expertise later lets him alter his own face to resemble Bruce Wayne. Why settle for killing Batman when he can steal Bruce's face, money, reputation, and public life? For somebody who has compared himself with Bruce since childhood, that theft carries more satisfaction than a clean victory. His limitation is dependence. Elliot is intelligent and intimate, but his largest schemes often rely on stronger villains, stolen resources, or Bruce being emotionally compromised by the people around him. He is one of the best enemies for attacking Bruce Wayne directly, without enough independent power to take the overall lead. Dr. Hurt. Dr. Hurt begins his decisive attack long before Batman realizes a campaign has started. Hurt is associated with the Black Glove and surrounded by deliberate uncertainty. He claims connections to the Wayne family, appears to possess unnatural longevity, and presents himself with demonic confidence. Different revelations complicate the exact identity, which helps him because Batman cannot stabilize the threat into one biography. During Batman R.I.P., Hurt activates psychological conditioning buried in Bruce's mind. He attacks his reputation, isolates him, drugs him, and pushes him toward a prepared mental collapse. The phrase Zur-En-Arrh triggers a backup personality Bruce had built in case his ordinary identity was compromised. Hurt expects to destroy Batman by dismantling Bruce Wayne, only to discover that Bruce anticipated the possibility of psychological attack. The backup does not make the experience harmless. Bruce is reduced to operating through a damaged, aggressive survival identity, while Hurt's organization controls the conditions around him. Hurt has effectively beaten Batman before the physical confrontation even starts. Hurt ranks high as a psychological strategist. His supernatural ceiling is too ambiguous to award him powers the story never establishes cleanly. The victory also contains its own failure. Batman's mind has been prepared to keep functioning after Bruce Wayne appears to disappear. Deacon Blackfire. Deacon Blackfire reaches a similar weakness without elaborate technology. He recruits Gotham's abandoned population into a cult beneath the city, captures Batman, deprives him of sleep and food, drugs him, and subjects him to sustained psychological control. Batman begins to doubt the mission because Blackfire attacks the exhausted person who has to perform it every night. The method is frighteningly plausible. Blackfire uses isolation, authority, repetition, and a community prepared to reinforce his claims. How do you fight a cult leader after he has made you doubt the mission that brought you there? His raw power stays low, and his hold weakens once Bruce recovers clarity. He earns a place above more theatrical manipulators, because he has demonstrated the ability to make Batman surrender confidence in his own purpose. The Mad Monk. The Mad Monk belongs to Batman's early pulp horror history. He appears as a hypnotic, vampiric figure whose castle, supernatural influence, and attacks on Julie Madison push Batman beyond ordinary gangsters almost immediately. Gotham is admitting something huge here. Some of its monsters may be completely literal. Nocturna. Nocturna brings a later Gothic presence. Natalia Knight is associated with a medical condition involving light, criminal activity, and a complicated relationship with Batman and the Bat family. Her continuity has shifted, and different versions give her different abilities or histories. She works best here as evidence that Batman's world repeatedly crosses from noir into supernatural romance without warning. Neither displaces Scarecrow or the Court of Owls in Proven Reach. Their historical value comes from opening the door. Once Batman accepts that literal ghosts, immortal assassins, and resurrected bodies can enter Gotham, ordinary forensic assumptions stop being enough. Cornelius Stirk. Cornelius Stirk attacks one of those assumptions through psychic perception. He can make victims see him as someone they trust, allowing a predator to approach behind a familiar face. His crimes become especially grotesque because the disguise is supplied by the victim's own mind. The ability is narrow compared with citywide mind control, but extremely effective for an ambush. Batman must recognize that the trusted person in front of him may be an imposed image before he can begin fighting the actual threat. Once exposed, Stirk lacks the scale and durability of the stronger metahumans. James Gordon Jr., Jim Gordon's son, requires no psychic power to look safe. James presents as controlled and intelligent while carrying a profound capacity for manipulation and murder. In The Black Mirror, Dick Grayson is operating as Batman and gradually uncovers his threat to the Gordon family in Gotham. James can enter personal spaces because his name should mean something to the people around him. He studies responses, lies calmly, and targets the emotional structure of a family already shaped by years of Gotham violence. His greatest danger remains personal rather than citywide, and no diagnosis should be invented beyond what the stories establish. He is a human killer whose normal appearance functions like camouflage. The Court of Owls. Bruce Wayne believes he knows Gotham. He has studied its streets, foundations, families, and criminal history, because the city is both his battlefield and the object of his mission. The Court of Owls answers that certainty with a nursery rhyme claiming Gotham has belonged to someone else for generations. The Court is a secret society formed from wealthy and influential Gotham families. It uses hidden architecture, political control, and assassins called Talons to preserve its ownership of the city. Talons are selected, trained, and kept available through a process that allows apparently dead killers to return. Batman is no longer investigating one immortal enemy. He is entering a system designed to replace its enforcers. The court captures Bruce and traps him inside a maze where deprivation, disorientation, and manipulated history break down his confidence. Images of owls surround him while he struggles to establish how long he has been inside. His detective skills become a liability because the environment supplies evidence designed by the enemy. Lincoln March deepens the attack by claiming a connection to the Wayne family, forcing Bruce to consider whether the court has reached into his own origin. The truth of every claim matters less to the court than the uncertainty it creates. If Bruce cannot fully account for his family or the buildings beneath his city, his ownership of Gotham's story collapses. The court's power comes from replaceability and time. Falcone controls officials for a generation, whereas the court shapes elite institutions over centuries. Black Mask can lose an organization when his soldiers abandon him. How do you exhaust a group that can simply wake another Talon when Gotham needs a murder? That makes the court the strongest institution so far. Riddler has demonstrated more visible control during Zero Year, while the court possesses deeper, quieter reach. Batman can expose members and defeat Talons, but punching one masked leader does not arrest the families, buildings, and traditions that keep the system alive. The ranking has now moved from one murderer to a hidden structure spread throughout Gotham. It still depends on human minds and bodies. The next villains can transform those bodies, survive fatal damage, or command living systems far beyond any private organization. Killer Croc. Waylon Jones has been portrayed across a wide range, from a powerful man with a severe skin condition to a massive reptilian figure capable of tearing through concrete. As Killer Croc, he combines strength, durability, claws, teeth, and knowledge of Gotham's waterways. His background as a wrestler in many versions gives him more fighting discipline than his appearance suggests. Bad portrayals reduce Croc to a mindless animal. Better ones preserve the intelligence, pain, and humanity of a person who has spent his life being treated as a monster. He has committed brutal crimes, but he has also protected vulnerable people and occasionally operated beside heroes when their interests align. In a direct encounter, Croc can overpower an unprepared Batman. Bruce wins by controlling distance, exploiting the environment, and attacking weaknesses rather than trading blows. Let Croc turn it into a raw strength contest, and Batman is in serious trouble. Man-Bat. Man-Bat adds flight and sonar. Kirk Langstrom begins as a scientist trying to give humans the sensory abilities of bats. His serum transforms him into a large winged creature with enhanced strength, speed, hearing, and mobility. Depending on the dose and story, Kirk may retain intelligence, lose control, or become a victim Batman is trying to cure. That changing alignment matters. Man-Bat is not always a willing villain and has served heroically in teams such as Justice League Dark. During hostile transformations, though, he can attack from the AIR, track through sound, and move with enough force to make every Gotham rooftop unsafe. His physical package may exceed Croc's through mobility and senses, while unstable cognition and reversible chemistry create reliable counters. Batman often wins by treating the transformation as a medical problem instead of trying to knock a giant bat unconscious. Clayface. Clayface is a mantle rather than one consistent person. Basil Karlo begins as an actor driven toward murder, while Matt Hagen becomes a major shape-shifting version after exposure to strange chemicals. Other people, including Preston Payne, Sandra Fuller, and Cassius Payne, bring different powers and tragedies to the name. The modern Basil Karlo combines the recognizable actor identity with a body made from mutable clay. That body turns almost every ordinary combat assumption against Batman. Clayface can change appearance, imitate voices, create weapons from his limbs, expand his mass, and absorb impacts that would hospitalize a human. He can enter a secure building as someone Batman trusts, then become a giant once secrecy is no longer useful. Containment is harder than victory in a single fight. Where do you even punch a body with no fixed organs? Batman relies on extreme temperature, electricity, solvents, separation, or technology designed to stabilize Clayface's structure. If enough material escapes, the villain may reform anyway. Basil's time working with Batman and his allies proves that the person inside the clay is capable of change. Bruce attempts rehabilitation and gives him a place on a team, turning one of Gotham's most physically alarming villains into a partner. The story acknowledges his crimes while allowing his later choices to become part of the character, preventing the ranking from freezing him permanently inside his worst period. Clayface becomes the hardest classic rogue so far to kill or permanently contain through force. Poison Ivy is about to exceed him in range, while very few villains can match his combination of infiltration, regeneration, and brute strength. Mr. Freeze. Victor Freeze survives at temperatures that would kill an ordinary person. His altered biology requires a cryogenic suit, and the weapons built into that suit can freeze people, machinery, and large areas almost instantly. In the tragic version popularized across modern Batman stories, his crimes are tied to Nora Freeze, whom he preserves while searching for a cure. That motive does not make every action sympathetic. Freeze has endangered or killed people while treating their lives as acceptable costs in one private rescue. It does make him more focused than criminals pursuing money. Nora is the fixed point around which his science, anger, and remaining humanity turn. In combat, Freeze controls the entire space around Batman. Ice can block movement, make armor brittle, disable vehicles, and turn the floor itself into a weapon. Bruce needs thermal protection and a way to compromise the suit or power supply before Victor decides where the fight is allowed to happen. Freeze outranks Firefly as a battlefield controller and scientist. He remains less versatile than Clayface and cannot independently match the reach of the next contender. Poison Ivy. Pamela Isley began with botanical science, toxins, and an ability to control people through pheromones. Modern stories have expanded her into a powerful avatar or participant in the green, the force connecting plant life across the planet. At that level, Poison Ivy is operating through an ecosystem rather than carrying a bag of specialized chemicals. Her body can produce toxins capable of killing, paralyzing, or controlling a target. Spores can spread influence through a population, while roots and vines can tear through streets, buildings, and vehicles. Plants provide surveillance, restraint, shelter, and overwhelming mass anywhere the environment gives her material to use. Some of Ivy's highest feats reach global scale. She has taken control of enormous populations and threatened to replace human civilization with an order shaped by the green. What use is Batman's martial arts when the air, ground, and people around him already belong to her? He needs chemical protection, an appeal to Pamela's remaining attachments, or help from forces operating at the same elemental level. Ivy's alignment has changed considerably. She protects the environment, cares deeply for Harley, and has often fought beside heroes against threats that endanger the planet she values. Those choices do not cancel her villainous acts, and they do make her maximum power less reliable as an instrument of conquest. Pamela often has reasons to stop before causing the devastation she could physically produce. By raw metahuman power, she becomes the strongest standard Gotham rogue so far. Riddler has ruled the city through planning, the court controls institutions, and Scarecrow owns the psychological category. Ivy can make the living world itself refuse. Batman entry. Solomon Grundy. Cyrus Gold dies in Slaughter Swamp and returns as Solomon Grundy, an enormous undead figure whose name comes from the nursery rhyme. Grundy's intelligence and exact strength change between incarnations. One resurrection may produce a confused creature who can be calmed, while another creates a monster capable of trading blows with some of DC's strongest heroes. He belongs broadly to the Justice Society and wider DC mythology, but his repeated presence in Gotham makes him part of Batman's supernatural landscape. How do you permanently defeat somebody when death is already part of his cycle? Even a successful fight may only determine when a different Grundy climbs from the swamp. At his strongest, Grundy is far beyond Batman in raw strength and durability. His inconsistent mind and lack of stable strategy keep him below Ivy in reliable reach. He can be the strongest body in the room without possessing a plan for what the room becomes afterward. Gentleman Ghost. Gentleman Ghost presents the opposite physical problem. Jim Craddock is a spectral criminal whose intangibility allows ordinary attacks to pass through him. He has fought Batman as well as heroes such as Hawkman, making him another wider DC enemy with a meaningful place in this list. Batman needs magic, specialized technology, or an understanding of the conditions binding the Ghost. Because, seriously, what good is a perfect punch when the target has no solid body? Craddock's supernatural defense exceeds most classic rogues, although he lacks Ivy's environmental scale and can be countered once the correct mystical rules are identified. Dr. Phosphorus. Alexander Sartorius becomes Dr. Phosphorus through radioactive exposure that leaves his body permanently burning. Heat and radiation make close combat dangerous before he throws a punch. Batman's usual habit of closing distance and controlling an opponent's limbs can expose him to lethal energy. Phosphorus can ignite materials, contaminate spaces, and survive conditions that would destroy an ordinary criminal. Batman cannot even close the distance safely without protective armor or remote tools. The villain's power remains much narrower than Clayface's transformation or Ivy's ecosystem control. Mr. Bloom. Mr. Bloom makes power contagious. During the period when Jim Gordon operates as a state-supported Batman, Bloom distributes seeds capable of giving desperate Gotham residents metahuman abilities. The gifts come with instability, and allow Bloom to alter his own body into elongated, monstrous forms. The threat spreads because Gotham supplies willing customers. A city full of people who feel abandoned does not need to be conquered one building at a time if power can be sold as the answer. Bloom's individual transformation is dangerous, while the seed network creates the larger casualty potential. Destroying or neutralizing that mechanism reduces his reach. He sits below Ivy because she commands an existing planetary system, while Bloom needs distribution and dependence to manufacture one. Maxi Zeus. Maxi Zeus usually operates as a criminal convinced that he is the Greek god, Zeus. He builds gangs and schemes around that identity, occasionally gaining technology or supernatural context that makes the claim look less absurd. The ranking has to separate those versions. A delusion does not grant divine power simply because Gotham contains real gods. Most versions leave Maxi as a themed human organizer with occasional high-end equipment. He can be dangerous and charismatic, without being the Olympian authority he believes himself to be. Amygdala. Amygdala is a powerful brute whose altered brain and body can make him devastating in close quarters. He can hurt Batman badly if the encounter becomes a strength contest, although he lacks the planning and reach of the leaders above him. Firebug. Firebug uses incendiary equipment in a role held by more than one person, creating the same urban spread problem as Firefly without the same iconic aerial identity. One ignition in the wrong building can still turn the fight into an evacuation. Electrocutioner. Electrocutioner is another mantle, usually built around electrical weapons that can disable Batman's equipment or body if the first hit lands. Specialized armor solves the problem only after Bruce knows which current is coming at him. Each can hurt Batman. None can displace Ivy's reach, Clayface's survivability, or Grundy's highest strength. Batman still wins these encounters by identifying a narrow weakness. The next group knows that habit already. They do not wait for Bruce to solve them, because their entire plan begins with solving Bruce. Deadshot. Floyd Lawton began as a Batman opponent before becoming inseparable from the Suicide Squad. As Deadshot, he is one of the best marksmen in DC, capable of making shots through spaces most people would not recognize as an opening. Wrist-mounted guns, rifles, concealed weapons, and specialized ammunition allow him to change range without changing purpose. His cleanest route to beating Batman comes from creating several targets, forcing Bruce to protect somebody else and waiting for the fraction of a second in which the armor faces the wrong direction. How do you dodge a shot designed around the person you have to save? Deadshot is talented enough to build the angle around that certainty. Floyd's desire for death has complicated many of his stories. He takes impossible missions and presents indifference as control, although his attachments repeatedly reveal that the pose is incomplete. Those motives make him unpredictable as an employee and easier to manipulate through the people he still values. At range, Deadshot can kill Batman if the plan works. Once disarmed and forced into sustained close combat, he falls below Bruce. He becomes the first elite specialist in this group, not the complete anti-Batman we are looking for. KG Beast. Anatoly Knyazov arrives with the training and endurance of a state-built weapon. KG Beast is introduced in 10 Nights of the Beast as a Soviet assassin conducting a strategic campaign in Gotham. He is conditioned to tolerate extreme pain, equipped for multiple forms of killing and willing to mutilate himself rather than let an injury end the mission. Batman initially treats him as something closer to an enemy operative than an Arkham personality. Knyazov plans routes, targets political objectives, and uses the city's size to keep the pursuit moving. When a limb prevents the mission, KG Beast treats the limb as expendable, and that is the level of commitment Batman is dealing with. That endurance lets him survive encounters that would stop most human villains. His thinking remains narrower than Batman's, and later stories have varied his competence. At his best, he is a military-grade threat who can force Bruce into ugly tactical decisions. He lacks the wider intelligence and adaptability required to own the category. David Kane. David Kane is an assassin and trainer whose most important crime is the childhood he creates for Cassandra Cain. He denies her ordinary language and shapes her entire development around reading physical movement. Cassandra learns to understand intent through posture, tension, and motion with a precision that eventually makes her one of the greatest fighters in the Bat family. Kane sees that achievement as proof of his method. The abuse reveals what Batman-like discipline becomes when empathy and consent are removed. Bruce trains partners to survive a mission they can challenge or leave. Kane attempts to turn a child into a perfect result belonging to him. As a combatant, he is an elite killer with deep knowledge of body language and assassination. His largest impact comes through training, rather than control of a city or army. Cassandra's rejection of the life he designed is also his clearest defeat. The weapon develops a conscience and chooses the symbol he cannot understand. Lady Shiva. Lady Shiva Sandra Wusan sits at the highest level of unenhanced hand-to-hand combat. She is Cassandra's mother and is moved between antagonist, teacher, and uneasy ally depending on the story. Shiva seeks opponents capable of testing her, and Batman's reputation naturally draws her into his world. Does Batman beat Lady Shiva in a clean hand-to-hand fight? There is no guarantee. Shiva reads movement, controls timing, and can kill with precision he refuses to use, forcing Bruce to change the conditions or find an advantage outside the pure duel. At this level, technical skill functions like a superpower against almost every person in Gotham. She takes the category for unenhanced fighting ability. She does not maintain Riddler's infrastructure, the court's institution, or Ivy's reach. Shiva can beat the person in front of her and then walk away because ruling the city was never the objective. Deathstroke. Slade Wilson is primarily a Titans and wider DC villain, but his clashes with Batman are frequent and defining enough to include. The experiment that enhances him gives him greater strength, speed, reflexes, endurance, and healing than a normal soldier. Armor, firearms, blades, and decades of mercenary experience complete the advantage. In many direct encounters, Slade should be physically favored. He can process a fight quickly, absorb damage, and switch from ranged pressure to close combat without needing a different plan. Bruce compensates by studying the contract, the environment, and Slade's divided loyalties. Their fights vary because comics rarely treat a permanent statistical winner as interesting. Slade has overpowered Batman, and Batman has outplanned or beaten Slade under other conditions. The honest verdict is that Deathstroke presents a superior enhanced body attached to elite tactics, while Batman's preparation keeps the result conditional. He ranks above Deadshot and KG Beast as a complete combat package. His status as somebody else's hired weapon and his lack of stable investment in Gotham keep him from becoming Batman's greatest strategic rival, Wrath. Wrath takes Batman's origin and turns the emotional direction around. In the classic concept, a child loses criminal parents because of law enforcement and grows up targeting police. Different continuities use different people and adjust the details, but the mirror stays visible. Bruce sees crime kill his parents and wages war against crime. Wrath sees authority cause the loss and wages war against the institutions Batman supports. Training, wealth, and specialized equipment allow Wrath to operate near Batman's level. He can study police relationships and build attacks around Bruce's alliance with Gordon. The concept makes him one of the closest thematic reflections on the list, although his achievements remain far below the villains who have successfully occupied Gotham or defeated the Justice League. Prometheus. Prometheus takes the inversion onto a larger stage. He is principally a Justice League villain, raised by criminals after police kill his parents, and trained to destroy heroes. His helmet can load specialized knowledge and combat abilities directly into his nervous system, allowing him to arrive with techniques tailored to the opponents in front of him. During his famous assault on the Justice League Watchtower, Prometheus uses preparation and knowledge to dismantle members who would destroy him in an improvised fight. Think about that for a second. He walks into the League's home and uses Batman's own basic method against them. Technology creates a clean weakness. Batman has defeated him by interfering with the downloaded data, including replacing useful combat knowledge with the physical abilities of Professor Stephen Hawking in a story whose dated phrasing is best left in its period. The point is that a perfect program can become a trap when the information is corrupted. Prometheus surpasses most Gotham humans in anti-team preparation. He still relies on a system Batman can hack, and has never sustained the complete control achieved by the next contender, Bane. Bane does not arrive in Gotham and challenge Batman immediately. That restraint is why Nightfall works. He is raised inside Pena Duro, a brutal prison on Santa Prisca, where he serves the life sentence imposed for his father's crimes. The prison becomes his entire childhood environment. Bane educates himself, trains his body, and studies the fear that has followed him through dreams of a bat. Experiments with the drug Venom enhance his strength far beyond human limits, but the mind existed before the chemical advantage. When Bane reaches Gotham, he recognizes that Batman's greatest weakness is predictable compassion. Bruce will respond to the emergency in front of him, even when he understands that somebody designed it. Bane releases the inmates of Arkham Asylum, and allows Batman's own rogues gallery to perform the attack. Batman spends days tracking Joker, Scarecrow, Mad Hatter, Firefly, and the other escapees. Every rescue costs sleep, concentration, and physical recovery. Bruce refuses enough help to preserve the idea that Gotham is his responsibility. Bane observes the decline instead of interrupting it. Only when Batman is exhausted does Bane enter Wayne Manor. He has already deduced Bruce's identity, so the home offers no protection and the mask supplies no mystery. Their fight is the last step of a strategy Bane has already won. Then he lifts Bruce and breaks his back across one knee. The image makes Bane famous, although focusing only on the physical act understates him. Venom did not release Arkham, study Batman's routine, or choose the moment. So did Bane beat Batman with strength? partly, although he really won by controlling the schedule, rescue instinct and exhaustion that determined what kind of Batman entered the room. His history after Nightfall is inconsistent in the way long-running villains often are, but the strongest stories preserve the combination. Bane has operated with the Secret Six, fought addiction, built organizations, and returned to challenge Bruce on a larger scale. In I Am Bane, he invades Gotham after Batman takes Psycho Pirate from Santa Prisca. He attacks Bruce's allies and presents himself as a force capable of dismantling the family around him. City of Bane gives him territorial control. Working through an alliance that includes Flashpoint Batman, Bane takes Gotham and places familiar villains into positions of authority. The city becomes a demonstration of what happens when Bruce's enemies receive the system instead of merely attacking it. The occupation attacks the whole family. Bane's forces keep Bruce away while Damian enters the city in an attempt to recover it. Alfred is being held as leverage, with warnings that an unauthorized return will cost him his life. Bane kills Alfred in front of Damian, turning control of Gotham into another permanent wound inside Wayne Manor. That act changes how Bane is judged. Nightfall can be read as a contest in which he wants to prove that Batman is beatable. City of Bane shows a ruler willing to target the family structure that helped Bruce recover from the first defeat. Bane understands that breaking the body only pauses Batman. Destroying the people who help him rebuild may alter every version that follows. The plan still becomes vulnerable to alliances Bane does not completely control. Flashpoint Batman has his own beliefs about ending Bruce's mission, Gotham's rogues have their own appetites, and the Bat family remains capable of acting outside Bruce's immediate direction. Bane can organize a city around Batman's absence, but he cannot make every person inside the organization share one purpose forever. Bane's direct power varies with Venom. Enhanced, he can overpower Batman and endure enormous punishment. Without it, he remains a highly trained fighter and one of the most disciplined strategists in the Rogues Gallery. Venom dependence has created exploitable weaknesses, while later versions often prove that reducing him to a tube-fed brute is a mistake. Poison Ivy retains the greater raw power. Lady Shiva may exceed him in pure unenhanced technique. Deathstroke has the stronger enhanced physical package in many conditions. Bane wins the category for the most complete classic physical and strategic opponent, because he has already demonstrated the exact path to defeating Batman on Batman's own ground. That path still focuses on one man and one city. The next villains command orders, governments, and global networks. Their plans do not end when Bruce falls because they are designed to decide what civilization looks like afterward. Azrael. Jean-Paul Valley is conditioned by the Order of Saint-Dumas through a process known as the System. He enters Batman's world as Azrael, carrying inherited programming, religious purpose, and combat ability he does not fully understand. After Bane breaks Bruce, Jean-Paul is chosen to protect Gotham as Batman. The replacement works in the narrowest sense. Jean-Paul builds heavier armor, adds increasingly lethal tools, and defeats Bane. So has Gotham found a better Batman? Absolutely not, because it has found one who can win fights while forgetting why Bruce's restraint existed. Jean-Paul grows violent, rejects the Bat family's attempts to reach him, and allows the system to dominate his judgment. The armor becomes a physical expression of the conditioning. More machinery gives him power while taking him further from the human decision that is supposed to control it. Bruce eventually returns and defeats him without trying to overpower the suit. He forces Jean-Paul through confined spaces and makes him remove the armor piece by piece. When the final protection is gone, the frightened person beneath it can recognize what he became. Azrael is a temporary antagonist and failed successor, not a lifelong Batman villain. His section answers an important power question. Someone else can perform Batman's function more violently and defeat an enemy Bruce could not face in that moment. Greater efficiency does not automatically produce a better Batman. The Magistrate, Simon Saint, offers Gotham a cleaner-looking replacement. His Magistrate program uses private technology, public fear, and government authority to criminalize masked vigilantes. Peacekeepers enforce the new order, with Peacekeeper 01 becoming the armored face of a security system that can classify Batman himself as the threat. This attack does not depend on proving that Saint can beat Bruce in an alley. What happens when Gotham makes Batman illegal and gives every camera police action and public statement to the organization hunting him? The government has outsourced safety to a system that gets to define Bruce as the threat. Peacekeeper 01. Advanced armor and surveillance make Peacekeeper 01 dangerous, while political permission provides the real scale. The system can occupy Gotham only while institutions and citizens continue accepting its claim to legitimacy. Once the corruption and manipulation become visible, Saint's technology has to survive without the authority that protected it. The Magistrate ranks above a gang and below the organizations built to survive across centuries and borders. It demonstrates how quickly Gotham can be conquered when fear is converted into policy. Talia al Ghul. Talia al Ghul cannot be reduced to one role. She is Ra's al Ghul's daughter, Damian Wayne's mother, Bruce's lover, a trained killer, a global leader, and in some periods, an ally against the system that raised her. Her position changes because affection, ambition, and inherited purpose pull her in different directions. During her most antagonistic periods, that personal access becomes a strategic weapon. Talia knows Bruce's identity, understands the League's methods, and can attack through family rather than forcing a confrontation with Batman. And how does Bruce prepare for somebody who is simultaneously Damian's mother, Ra's daughter, and the leader of the force coming after them? Talia eventually builds Leviathan into an international intelligence and assassination network. Hidden agents, advanced technology, finance, and ideological loyalty allow operations far outside Gotham. In Grant Morrison's Batman and Robin era, her conflict with Bruce and Damian becomes deadly, and the machinery around Leviathan supports an attempt to shape the world at institutional scale. Her decisions include acts that permanently damage the family she claims to value. They also vary enough that ranking her as one stable form of evil would be misleading. Talia can lead a global war in one period and work against a greater threat in another. At her most dangerous, she combines Ra's resources with closer knowledge of Bruce. Her changing motives make the power difficult to apply consistently. The League of Assassins. The League of Assassins is a force multiplier. Names and internal structures change across continuity, and not every faction using assassin imagery should be treated as the same organization. The central version supplies trained killers, hidden bases, money, intelligence, and a tradition capable of surviving individual leaders. Stopping a single assassin only creates a vacancy in the recruitment pipeline, and destroying one base leaves cells in other countries able to continue operating. That persistence places the League above Gotham's local organizations, even when its individual members cannot match Batman. Leviathan. Leviathan applies similar logic through intelligence and global infiltration, depending on the era and leader. Both networks become more or less dangerous according to the person directing them. Under weak leadership, they fragment into rival agendas. Under Ra's or Talia, they provide the reach required to target governments and populations. Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul has spent centuries watching civilization repeat the same forms of corruption, expansion, and environmental destruction. Lazarus Pits restore his youth and life, allowing one strategist to accumulate experience across generations. Each resurrection can affect his mind, but death rarely ends his campaign for long. Ra's commands enormous wealth, the League of Assassins, and a network of people who treat his purpose as larger than any individual life. He sees ecological collapse and human overpopulation as problems requiring deliberate reduction. That calculation can escalate into plans to kill vast portions of humanity through plague or coordinated catastrophe. In stories such as Contagion and Legacy, disease becomes a weapon, at a scale Gotham's ordinary rogues cannot approach. Ra's has the scientific knowledge, global routes, and ideological certainty to treat millions of deaths as environmental correction. Batman has to stop the delivery system while fighting an opponent who may already have prepared a new body, pit, or successor. Ra's respects Bruce because he sees the same discipline and long-term purpose. He calls him detective, wants him as an heir, and repeatedly offers access to resources that could make Batman's war vastly more effective. The offer always contains the same price. Bruce must accept killing as a legitimate tool of permanent order. That resemblance makes Ra's more dangerous than a ruler who simply wants territory. He can describe mass murder as the completed form of Batman's mission. Criminals return, institutions fail, and Gotham keeps producing victims. So why preserve rules that prevent a final solution? Bruce refuses because the solution gives one immortal man the authority to decide who is allowed to survive. Ra's sees uncertainty as waste. Batman sees the refusal to own other lives as the line separating protection from domination. The Lazarus Pits create weaknesses as well as longevity. Ra's can become unstable after resurrection, and the locations or chemistry of the pits can be targeted. His certainty makes him predictable at the ideological level, because he will sacrifice almost anything for the world he believes should replace the current one. Among the classic rogues, Ra's has the greatest sustained global reach. Ivy may possess more immediate raw power through the green, while Ra's applies armies, disease, wealth, and centuries of planning with far greater consistency. He is the first contender capable of threatening civilization as a long-term program rather than one catastrophic episode. One classic villain remains. His ordinary body should place him far below Ra's, Ivy, and Bane. His effect on Batman makes every physical comparison feel incomplete. The Joker. Joker's origin refuses to stay fixed. The most familiar version involves a fall into chemical waste that bleaches his skin, colors his hair, and leaves him with a permanent grin, but the man before that fall changes according to the story. Was he the Red Hood, a failed comedian, or a career criminal? Joker is offered several pasts because a stable biography would give Batman an answer, and he would rather make the missing answer part of the performance. Physically, he is usually a human criminal with unusual pain tolerance, chemical resistance, and the advantage of fighting without concern for his own safety. That body does not explain why he stands at the center of Batman's rogues gallery. His real arsenal is preparation built to look like chaos. Joker Toxin can kill while leaving a distorted smile on the victim, contaminate large populations, and transform a public space into his signature. Explosives, traps, and disposable followers expand the reach. He rarely pursues wealth unless the money supports the joke. The objective is to arrange a situation in which Batman's response becomes part of the punchline. In A Death in the Family, Joker beats Jason Todd with a crowbar and leaves him beside a bomb. Batman arrives too late. Jason's death becomes one of Bruce's greatest failures, and his return as Red Hood forces the ugliest question into the open. After everything Joker has done, why is he still alive? The question cannot be answered by saying Batman lacks the opportunity. Bruce has had the Joker at his mercy. He believes killing him would destroy the rule controlling the mission and make every future exception easier. Joker understands that rule and continually tries to turn it into evidence that Batman values his own purity above the people who will die next. The Killing Joke attacks the idea that one terrible day can reduce anybody to madness. Joker shoots Barbara Gordon, photographs the aftermath, and tortures Jim Gordon in an attempt to prove that even the city's most principled commissioner can be broken. Gordon survives the ordeal and insists that Batman bring Joker in by the book, denying him the demonstration he wants. Barbara's history moves far beyond victimhood. She becomes Oracle, building an information network that supports the entire heroic community, and later returns to operating as Batgirl. Joker causes permanent harm without controlling what she builds from it. That failure matters because he repeatedly mistakes trauma for ownership. His attacks on the Gordon family continue because Gordon represents another person who refuses Joker's philosophy. No Man's Land ends with Joker murdering Sarah Essen Gordon after a cruel confrontation involving kidnapped infants. He turns a citywide disaster into one intimate loss because he knows the smaller scene will follow Batman and Gordon long after territory is restored. Endgame raises the operational ceiling. Joker returns with a toxin capable of infecting the Justice League and turning Batman's strongest allies against him. He tells a story suggesting that he may be an ancient immortal presence in Gotham, using apparent evidence and the city's own mythology to destabilize Batman's investigation. The claims function as another weapon, whether or not they are true. Death of the Family attacks the network Bruce built around himself. Joker captures members of the Bat family and argues that they have made Batman weak. He presents the campaign as an act of purification, pretending that removing Bruce's closest relationships will restore the private contest Joker believes belongs to them. The family survives, although Joker succeeds in aggravating existing secrecy and distrust because Bruce has withheld information while trying to protect them. That pattern explains why Joker can lose the physical encounter and still damage the structure around Batman. Bruce stops the immediate plan. Everybody has to live with the suspicion Joker introduced, and Joker treats that delayed fracture as part of the result. Joker War attacks Bruce's resources. Joker gains control of the Wayne fortune and technology, then uses Batman's own equipment to turn Gotham into a larger stage. Punchline helps manage the movement around him, demonstrating that Joker's influence can be packaged for people who were never personally manipulated in an Arkham interview room. One story gives Joker a power level FAR beyond his standard form and has to be included if the ranking is genuinely using each villain's comic ceiling. In Emperor Joker, he tricks Mr. Mxyzptlk into giving him almost all of the fifth-dimensional imp's power. Reality becomes his toy. He reshapes the world, tortures and kills Batman repeatedly, then restores him so the cycle can begin again. This temporary form takes Joker from chemical terrorism to universal reality manipulation. It also exposes his oldest limitation at the largest possible scale. Joker cannot create a reality that releases his fixation on Batman. Superman recognizes that the inability to erase Batman from existence gives the heroes a point of leverage, while Mxyzptlk's involvement is essential to reversing the transfer and repairing reality. Emperor Joker therefore enters the highest tier. His power is borrowed through deception, unstable and surrendered once the structure of the trick collapses. That standard is still fair because the final winner also acquires power rather than being born with it. The difference comes from demonstrated control and the scale of the opponent defeated. Emperor Joker warps a universe with Max Weisbelok's stolen power. The final contender masters Crisis Energy, kills the being who created the multiverse, and continues constructing realities around himself. He can threaten Gotham and, with the correct toxin or stolen resources, reach beyond it. In a clean physical fight, he loses badly to Poison Ivy, Solomon Grundy, or a Venom-enhanced Bane. His plans work because he avoids the clean fight and designs several unacceptable outcomes around whatever Batman chooses. Joker wins the category for Batman's defining classic enemy because he has inflicted the greatest psychological damage, remained the most unpredictable, and attacked the moral rule that shapes every victory. Ra's has more reliable global reach, Ivy has vastly greater natural power, and Bane provides the better combination of physical and strategic parity. The overall raw power contest remains open. Joker is still human, and the threat promised at the beginning operates at the level of realities. Reaching that ceiling requires leaving the ordinary rogues behind and examining weapons Batman's own planning helped create. The Designer. The Designer arrives with an offer tailored to Gotham's most ambitious criminals. He claims that any crime can be perfected if every response is anticipated before the first move. Joker, Riddler, Penguin, and Catwoman are each offered a design capable of moving them beyond the limits that normally allow Batman to stop them. The idea is almost more dangerous than the person. Batman survives because criminals improvise badly, compete with one another, and leave gaps between desire and execution. A planner who can coordinate their strengths while removing those weaknesses could turn the entire rogues gallery into one machine. Years later, those designs return as part of a campaign targeting Batman. The supposed mastermind appears to have anticipated developments across an enormous span of time. The reveal cuts down the legend. Joker killed the original designer during the first meeting and later used the identity and old plans for his own purposes. That does not make the concept harmless. The designer understood enough about Gotham's criminals to build plans that remained useful years later. His weakness was the belief that planning could fully contain people whose identities are built around compulsion. Joker refused to behave like a variable and removed the man trying to define his future. The designer ranks high in conceptual intelligence and low in proven ability to survive the system he built. Batman's own contingency thinking is about to produce a much more reliable enemy because this one does not need pride, money, or recognition. Failsafe. Batman has spent years preparing plans for the possibility that powerful heroes might lose control. The Justice League learns how effective those plans can be when Ra's al Ghul steals them during Tower of Babel. Bruce also knows that one person is missing from his list of external targets: Batman himself. The modern Zur-En-Arrh personality addresses that problem by creating Failsafe. The android is designed to activate if Batman kills and to continue until the threat has been neutralized. Its information comes from Batman's own mind, meaning it understands his fighting style, escape methods, allies, and usual countermeasures before the first encounter. False evidence that Batman murdered Penguin triggers the protocol. Bruce knows he did not kill Cobblepot, while Failsafe was built to execute its response as soon as the activation condition appeared. Persuasion fails because a machine designed to stop a compromised Batman cannot trust Batman's explanation of why he should be allowed to continue. Failsafe moves through Bruce's plans with frightening efficiency. It counters the Bat family, adapts to Batman's attempts to disable it, and survives intervention from the Justice League. And when Superman arrives? That still does not solve the problem because the machine was designed by a mind that has spent years planning how Superman could be stopped. This is where Batman's preparation finally separates from Batman's judgment. Bruce changes plans when new evidence appears. Failsafe treats flexibility as a route through which a guilty Batman might manipulate the protocol. Its reliability makes it stronger and less intelligent at the same time. Batman eventually searches for the compassion protocol that should balance the machine's mission. The struggle sends Bruce into another reality rather than producing a clean mechanical shutdown. Failsafe continues evolving as other forces attempt to use it, including Amanda Waller during her campaign against Earth's metahumans. The machine becomes the strongest dedicated anti-Batman weapon so far. Bane studies Bruce from outside and defeats him once exhaustion has done its work. Failsafe begins with Bruce's own data and can challenge the allies who would normally rescue him. Its limitation is purpose. However difficult the protocol is to reach, a defined set of instructions still exists beneath every action. Zur-En-Arrh. Zur-En-Arrh has a complicated publication history. An older story presents a Batman from another planet, while later work transforms the phrase into a psychological trigger and backup identity inside Bruce. Those versions should not be flattened into one biography. The modern Zur relevant to this ranking is the Batman Bruce created to keep operating if his mind were compromised. During Batman R.I.P., that backup helps him survive Dr. Hurt's attack. Zur is colorful, aggressive, and stripped of many ordinary attachments. In an emergency, those qualities look useful. Over time, the personality's independence reveals the cost. Zur views Bruce Wayne's empathy and hesitation as contamination inside Batman. Failsafe is Zur's answer to the possibility that Bruce crosses the line. Later conflict allows Zur to pursue a body and operational freedom beyond the mental compartment where Bruce intended to keep him. The backup is no longer satisfied with preserving Batman. It wants to define Batman without Bruce. That produces a familiar argument in a more intimate form. Many villains claim Bruce's rule against killing prevents him from completing the mission. Zur goes even further and treats Bruce Wayne's entire humanity as the weakness. Remove grief, family, tenderness, and doubt. Then Batman becomes a pure process for identifying and neutralizing threats. Bruce's answer is visible across the people he has trained. The mission survives because relationships change him, challenge plans, and prevent a damaged child in Crime Alley from becoming the only voice allowed to make decisions forever. Zur has Batman's tactical mind with less of that balance. As a threat, Zur surpasses Hush and Hugo Strange in access because he begins inside Bruce. He can use the same memories, techniques, and contingency logic without needing to deduce them. He remains below the cosmic contenders because even the perfect Batman mind needs a body, technology, and a world whose physical rules stay intact. Owlman. Owlman is an evil counterpart to Batman associated with Earth-3 and the Crime Syndicate. The identity and family details change across continuities, frequently connecting him to Thomas Wayne Jr., or another dark reflection of the Wayne family. So what happens when Batman's intelligence belongs to a world where evil always wins? He possesses intelligence, wealth, training, and access to the Crime Syndicate's resources. Those advantages make him far more than a costumed Gotham rival. Owlman can plan around alternate Earths, study counterparts, and use a team whose members mirror the Justice League's powers. His nihilism separates him from Bruce. Owlman argues that choice has no ultimate meaning, particularly when the multiverse contains worlds where every alternative decision also occurs. In Justice League, Crisis on Two Earths, an animated adaptation rather than evidence for this comic ranking, that belief drives an attempt to destroy the one Earth whose destruction would erase every reality. The adaptation captures his philosophy clearly, even though we are not adding its feet to his comic record. Comic versions have repeatedly operated at multiversal scale through the Crime Syndicate, but Owlman does not usually carry stable reality warping power in his own body. He is a Batman-level planner with access to a larger evil team. If isolated from those resources, the contest returns to strategy and equipment. He outranks the conventional anti-Batman in scope and represents an important escalation. Bruce has now met a counterpart shaped by another world, but we are still measuring Batman-shaped people with equipment, teams, and plans. What happens when the next enemy can reach beneath the multiverse itself, into the place where every failed reality is supposed to die? At that point, Gotham is barely even the battlefield anymore. It is one small doorway into something far larger. The next villain lives in that darkness, where failed worlds accumulate from the fears of everyone above them. From this point onward, Batman's normal physical limits become almost completely irrelevant. Barbatos. The World Forger creates possible universes from the hopes and fears of living beings. Stable worlds rise into the known multiverse. Unstable worlds are supposed to collapse and return their energy to the Forge. Instead, countless failed realities gather beneath creation as the dark multiverse. Barbatos is an ancient bat demon tied to that realm. Its history reaches through cosmic events and Batman's own life, connecting bat imagery, unusual metals, and choices Bruce believed were separate. By the time Batman understands the pattern in Dark Knight's metal, investigation has helped move him into the position the enemy needs. Special metals inside Bruce's body make him part of a ritual. Barbatos uses Batman as a doorway and pulls him into the dark multiverse. The central Earth begins sinking toward a realm built from nightmares that were never supposed to survive. Barbatos commands forces beyond any Gotham organization. His soldiers are nightmare versions of Batman from worlds where one fear or loss pushed Bruce toward a catastrophic answer. Each combines Batman's intelligence with powers or systems stolen from the people he normally trusts. This is Batman's mind, armed with the powers of the Justice League. This is no longer an attempt to occupy Gotham. If Earth is dragged down, the structure around the main multiverse changes with it. Barbatos operates through cosmic existence, corrupted worlds, and an army designed from failed realities. The heroes need nth metal, wider alliances, and a level of trust the Nightmare Batmen have systematically destroyed in themselves. Batman cannot solve the crisis by preparing alone, because preparation is exactly what the enemy has weaponized. Superman refuses to abandon him, Wonder Woman leads resistance, and the League brings Earth back from the dark by acting across the boundaries Barbatos exploits. Barbatos becomes the strongest revealed contender. He begins at cosmic scale, commands an entire realm of discarded worlds, and nearly pulls the central universe into it. Poison Ivy's planetary reach, Ra's global network, and Joker's psychological damage cannot compete in raw scope. Emperor Joker makes that comparison less simple because fifth-dimensional power lets Joker rewrite reality directly. His form still depends on power taken from Monkswise Ptolk, and ends when the heroes exploit the part of Joker that cannot imagine existence without Batman. Barbatos possesses his cosmic status independently and commands an infrastructure of worlds rather than one stolen burst of control. The ranking is now measuring several different forms of impossible power. Barbatos has the more stable cosmic existence. Emperor Joker has the more direct reality manipulation while the stolen power lasts. The Hidden Commander eventually combines Batman's strategic control with a source of reality-shaping energy he successfully turns against another cosmic creator. That is the feat neither current leader can match. Barbatos looks like the winner, and he still does not take the top spot. One Batman serving beneath him eventually escapes the role of lieutenant, acquires power his master never possessed, and turns the war over reality into his own design. Before naming that commander, we need to understand the army around him. The Red Death. On one dark world, Bruce loses members of the Bat family and decides the Flash's speed is the only way to prevent future deaths. Barry Allen refuses to surrender the Speed Force because he understands what Bruce's obsession is becoming. Batman responds by taking it. He straps Barry to the Batmobile and forces both of them into the Speed Force, merging their bodies into the Red Death. Bruce emerges with super speed, accelerated perception, and the ability to create speed-generated bat forms. Barry's consciousness remains trapped inside, fighting the person who stole his power. Batman-level planning becomes vastly more dangerous when decisions happen before ordinary opponents can even perceive movement. How do you spring a contingency on Batman when he can cross the battlefield before it activates? His origin carries the weakness. Barry remains present, and the stolen Speed Force does not belong cleanly to Bruce. Resistance inside the merged body prevents total control. Even so, Red Death is far above every unenhanced Gotham villain and could eliminate most of the earlier list before a normal fight began. The Murder Machine. Another Bruce loses Alfred and asks Cyborg for help creating an artificial intelligence capable of preserving him. Cyborg warns that reproducing a human consciousness through this system carries enormous risk. Bruce proceeds, and the Alfred intelligence becomes violently protective. It kills Batman's enemies and spreads into machinery, deciding that the safest world for Bruce is one where threats have been removed permanently. Bruce merges with the system and becomes the Murder Machine, carrying grief through a cybernetic network with capabilities comparable to Cyborg's technological reach. The result can infiltrate systems, generate mechanical bodies, and attack through connected infrastructure. Failsafe is a defined machine created to stop one compromised hero. Murder Machine is Batman's grief spreading through every connected system it can reach. It lacks the raw cosmic ceiling of the final contender, but the combination would overwhelm almost every earlier criminal organization. The court hides inside Gotham's buildings. Murder Machine can make the buildings report back. The Dawnbreaker. Bruce Wayne receives a Green Lantern ring immediately after his parents are murdered on another dark world. A lantern ring is supposed to select someone capable of overcoming great fear. Young Bruce's will is strong enough to use it, and furious enough to test every limit built into it. He attempts to kill Joe Chill. The ring resists lethal force, so Bruce pushes his will through the restriction until darkness emerges from the weapon. He murders Chill, then turns on the criminals and authorities around him. The power designed to answer fear becomes an extension of the moment in Crime Alley. As the Dawnbreaker, he creates black constructs, overwhelms other Green Lanterns, and carries a cosmic weapon controlled by Batman's focus without Batman's rule. The ring offers flight, protection, energy projection, and imagination made physical. Batman with a Green Lantern ring was always going to be terrifying. The power remains tied to a stolen and corrupted system whose rules can push back. Greater cosmic forces can overwhelm the ring. Against the standard Gotham rogues, Dawnbreaker occupies an entirely different class, the Drowned. Bryce Wayne comes from a world where Batman is a woman, and conflict with meta-humans becomes a war against Atlantis. After losing the person she loves and fighting her world's Aquawoman, Bryce alters her own biology using Atlantean methods. She becomes capable of surviving beneath the sea and commanding an environment she once feared. As the Drowned, she controls corrupted water and creates or directs engineered creatures known as Deadwater. Flooding changes the battlefield before the army arrives. Streets, buildings, and human bodies become vulnerable to an element covering most of the planet. Her decision follows the pattern established by the other Dark Knights. Loss convinces Batman that depending on another hero's power is intolerable, so she rebuilds herself to make that power her property. Now the question becomes horrifyingly simple. Where do you run when the Osean is the enemy, the Merciless? On another world, Batman fights beside Wonder Woman against Ares. Bruce believes Diana has died and takes the god's helmet to finish the battle. He convinces himself that the weapon can be used briefly and surrendered once the immediate threat is gone. The helmet of Ares gives him divine strength and power connected to war. It also rewards the logic that violence becomes safe when the correct person controls it. Batman keeps the helmet, kills enemies, and eventually turns on allies who question him. The Merciless can inspire or feed conflict, wield magical force, and fight at a level ordinary metahumans cannot survive. Batman's strategic ability is now paired with the authority of a war god. Poison Ivy can command plant life, and Grundy can trade blows with powerful heroes, while Merciless can challenge members of the Justice League directly. His power comes with the same trap as every shortcut on this list. The tool selected to end one war makes peace less useful to the person wearing it, the Devastator. This dark Bruce watches Superman turn against the world and concludes that trust in a Kryptonian was always an unacceptable risk. He develops a version of the Doomsday virus and infects himself, transforming into a monster designed to kill Superman-level opponents. The Devastator retains Batman's knowledge while gaining enormous strength, durability, and the adaptive power associated with Doomsday. He can spread infection and turn other people into similar creatures, giving the transformation an army-building function beyond one body. Against Bane, Croc, or Grundy, the physical comparison becomes absurd. Devastator is built for fights where buildings disappear as collateral damage. Against Superman, he possesses both the body designed to survive the exchange and the mind that has studied Clark's weaknesses for years. The cost is visible in the form. Bruce responds to fear that Superman may become a monster by voluntarily making himself one. He gains the strength to win the imagined fight and destroys the relationships that might have prevented it. The Grim Knight. The Grim Knight begins closer to the Batman people recognize. Joe Chill murders Thomas and Martha Wayne, then drops the gun. Young Bruce picks it up and kills him. That first decision removes the boundary around every later one. This Bruce still trains, builds equipment, and wages war on crime. He embraces firearms, lethal traps, and total surveillance because each tool appears to reduce the chance that another criminal escapes. Gotham becomes a militarized system in which Batman decides who counts as a threat and removes them before due process can interfere. The Grim Knight does not possess the Flash's speed, a lantern ring, or Doomsday's body. His danger comes from demonstrating how quickly ordinary Batman resources can support authoritarian killing once the rule disappears. Drones, databases, weapons, and planning create a city where crime falls, because everybody lives beneath one man's targeting system. James Gordon resists him because safety enforced through permanent fear is another form of captivity. The conflict echoes the Magistrate at a more personal level. Simon Saint asks Gotham's institutions to authorize the system. Grim Knight simply decides Batman already has enough authority. He bridges the standard rogues in the final reveal. Every villain has tried to make Batman kill, surrender trust, or accept domination as the efficient answer. This Bruce takes the offer in the first minutes of his career. The Nightmare Batmen still answer to one commander. He does not borrow one Justice League power and stop there. He keeps Batman's complete mind, removes the restraint guiding it, and eventually acquires power large enough to reshape every world around him. The Darkest Night. So after every killer, mastermind, monster, assassin, and corrupted Batman, who is the strongest villain of them all? The Batman who laughs after his transformation into the Darkest Night. He begins on Earth -22 as a Bruce Wayne who finally kills Joker. Joker has planned for that possibility. Toxin released from his heart infects Batman and gradually rewrites him, combining Bruce's intelligence, memories, and preparation with Joker's absence of restraint. Bruce recognizes that something is happening, but the change advances before he can stop it. He murders the Bat family, destroys the heroes of his world, and becomes the Commander Barbatos needs for the Dark Knights. Unlike the other Nightmare Batmen, he has not exchanged Batman's mind for one specialized answer. He can study all of them, coordinate their abilities, and plan around the heroes they mirror. After Barbatos falls, the Batman who laughs continues as an independent threat. He He infects heroes with altered toxin, manipulates other versions of Bruce, and repeatedly turns Batman's own habits into routes through his defenses. At this stage, he is already one of the most dangerous planners in the multiverse, although Barbatos still possesses the greater raw cosmic scale. That changes during Dark Knight's Death Metal. A version of Bruce has recreated the kind of energy associated with Dr. Manhattan. The Batman who laughs arranges for his brain to be placed into that body, gaining reality-altering power while preserving the mind that planned the transfer. Wonder Woman kills the initial transformed body, but his consciousness survives and reforms as the Darkest Knight. He absorbs crisis energy, creates nightmare realities, and builds forces from worlds that answer to his imagination. Perpetua, the cosmic being who created the original multiverse, can no longer dismiss him as a servant. He challenges her, kills her, and moves to remake existence around his own design. The conflict matters because Perpetua sits above the normal universe-destroying villains. She is one of the hands responsible for creating multiverses and originally designed this one as a weapon. The Monitor, Anti-Monitor, and World Forger are her children, each responsible for a major part of the cosmic structure. By Death Metal, Perpetua has already defeated or subordinated forces that would end almost every earlier contest immediately. The Darkest Knight turns the energy generated by Crisis and Nightmare worlds against her. His army does not consist only of the original 7 Dark Knights. With reality under his influence, he can produce grotesque new combinations and entire worlds built to keep fear, conflict, and crisis feeding the system. Batman's talent for contingency planning is operating through a battlefield whose possible universes can become disposable resources. Perpetua and the Darkest Knight fight across the remaining multiverse as both consume the power available to them. He ultimately reduces her and kills her, removing the creator who expected every lesser being to remain inside her design. From there, he intends to replace the surviving reality with a Last 52 made from nightmare worlds under his control. This also clarifies why he ranks above Emperor Joker. Both hold acquired reality warping power, and both are tied to Joker's inability to leave Batman alone. Emperor Joker receives Mxyzptlk's power through a trick and loses control when that relationship is untangled. The Darkest Knight plans his transfer into a Manhattan-powered body, survives the body's destruction, gathers additional crisis energy, and defeats Perpetua with the resulting form. One transforms reality until the stolen gift is removed. The other climbs through several stages and kills a multiversal creator in direct competition. That feat decides the ranking. Joker remains more important to the central Batman myth and has inflicted greater personal damage on Bruce, while Ra's has more reliable global reach, and Ivy possesses vastly greater natural power. Bane is the strongest complete classic physical and strategic rival. The Court of Owls wins hidden institutional control, and Barbatos begins as a cosmic threat commanding the realm that produced the Dark Knights. The Darkest Knight exceeds all of them at his peak. He possesses Batman-level intelligence, Joker's willingness to cross every line, and enough acquired power to kill a creator of the multiverse. His reach is no longer measured in victims, cities, or planets. He can rewrite reality. Could Batman defeat him? Bruce could not do it alone. So Wonder Woman gains anti-crisis power, confronts the Darkest Knight at the end of creation, and pushes him into the death of the universe as the hands restore reality. The wider resistance and cosmic power available to Diana are essential. Calling him the winner does not require pretending he was unbeatable. Diana is the right opponent, because the final crisis is no longer a detective problem with one hidden switch. She draws on truth, memory, and the accumulated history the villains have tried to reduce to fuel. Their battle moves from the dying multiverse to the end of time, where she can meet his reality-shaping force at its own level. Batman contributes to the resistance and to understanding the enemy, but there is no credible version of the ending where an ordinary utility belt contingency lets him defeat the Darkest Knight at peak power. The gap is too large. Bruce's real answer is the community he helped build, including a hero capable of taking the final fight when he cannot. The full ladder now circles back to Crime Alley. Joe Chill is physically the weakest major villain we covered, yet one bullet creates Batman. The strongest villain keeps Batman's mind, removes the rule that made those skills heroic, and gains enough power to rebuild the multiverse around himself. That makes the Darkest Knight the most powerful Batman villain by peak canon power and demonstrated reach. His defeat also proves the point Bruce has defended against Joker, Ra's, Zur, and every murderous version of himself. Give Batman's mind unlimited power without Bruce's restraint, and you create a threat that no single person can control. The secondary winners still matter. Joe Chill remains the most consequential low-power criminal because Batman exists after his one successful attack. Riddler is the clearest intellectual ruler of Gotham. Scarecrow owns direct psychological warfare, and the Court of Owls represents its deepest hidden institution. Clayface is the hardest standard rogue to contain through physical damage, while Poison Ivy has the greatest raw power among Gotham's normal recurring villains. Lady Shiva wins the unenhanced combat benchmark. Bane is the most complete classic opponent for beating Batman through strength, intelligence, and patient preparation. Ra's al Ghul has the greatest sustained global reach, and Joker remains Batman's defining enemy regardless of what a cosmic ranking says about their bodies. Barbados carries the first stable cosmic claim and commands the realm that supplies the Nightmare Army. Emperor Joker proves that even the classic Joker has briefly reached reality warping scale. The Darkest Knight takes the final position because his peak joins Batman's planning to multiversal power, then supplies the hardest demonstrated result on the list. The contest begins with an ordinary criminal proving how much one person can change through a terrible choice. It ends with a corrupted Batman trying to make every choice for everyone. Bruce spends the entire distance between them refusing that authority, even when using it would make the next victory easier. That refusal is why the strongest villain is still a villain. He has Batman's knowledge and power beyond almost anything Batman has faced, yet even the ability to rewrite worlds cannot turn domination into heroism or make another person's future his property. If you enjoyed this video and want to see every Batman explained, click the video on screen now.